When civilization collapses and the grid goes dark, there will be three things still running: cockroaches, Keith Richards, and Mercedes W123 diesels. One has 1.2 million documented miles and counting. While your 2026 sedan is bricked because OnStar shut down, these 12 machines will still be running on mechanical injection and sheer stubbornness. Today we're exposing sedans built to survive the apocalypse because engineers back then didn't know how to make things fail. Let's start at number 12. Number 12, Saab 900, 1978 to 1993. The Saab 900 wasn't just a car. It was a Swedish engineering statement written in steel and stubbornness. When Saab engineers designed this beast, they apparently forgot they were building a civilian vehicle and instead created something that could survive a nuclear winter. Born from aerospace technology, the 900 inherited Saab's aircraft DNA in every bolt and rivet. The turbocharged engines were so overbuilt that mechanics would joke about needing a crane to stress them properly. These motors regularly crossed 300,000 miles while laughing at maintenance schedules. The body construction was absolutely bonkers. Panel gaps tighter than a bank vault. The ignition switch between the seats wasn't just quirky Swedish design, it was an anti-theft system so effective that car thieves would literally walk away in frustration. In Scandinavian countries, these cars became the unofficial vehicles for people who measured winter in months, not weeks. They'd start in minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit weather, when other cars were basically frozen sculptures. Consumer Reports consistently rated these with 4 out of 5 reliability scores. The only people who didn't love them were mechanics, because Saab 900 owners rarely needed their services. Today, finding a clean 900 turbo is like discovering buried treasure, except this treasure can still hit 60 miles per hour in under 8 seconds after sitting in a barn for 20 years. But does Swedish aerospace engineering compare to what Honda built when they obsessed over perfection? Number 11, Honda Civic, 1988 to 1991. The Honda Civic from the late 1980s was the automotive equivalent of that reliable friend who shows up on time, never complains, and somehow always has gas money. While American manufacturers were cutting corners, Honda quietly built a compact sedan that could outlast several presidential administrations. The 1.5-liter and 1.6-liter engines were masterpieces of understated engineering, so simple and reliable that Honda engineers probably felt embarrassed by how easy their job was. These motors were basically agricultural equipment designed to run forever on nothing but regular unleaded and the occasional oil change. You could buy these Civics with 5-speed manual transmissions, manual windows, no power locks, and interiors so basic they felt like punishment, until you realized that meant nothing could break. The body was steel. College students bought these, beat them mercilessly like rented mules, and they refused to die. Consumer Reports gives these 5 out of 5 reliability ratings. The only people who didn't love them were mechanics, because Civic owners rarely needed their services. In Cuba, where cars are driven until they literally disintegrate, these Civics are everywhere. Cuban mechanics call them forever cars because they've witnessed them survive conditions that would kill military vehicles. Today, Civics with 300,000 plus miles sell for $3,000 to $6,000 because buyers understand basic Honda engineering was actually superior, except this treasure can still get 40 miles per gallon after sitting for 6 months. But does Honda's compact perfection compare to what Toyota built with their inline-six luxury? Number 10, Toyota Cressida, 1980 to 1992. The Toyota Cressida was Toyota's bold declaration that they could build luxury sedans. And while the market ignored it like an unwanted stepchild, this car represents one of the most underrated, over-engineered sedans of the 1980s. Toyota took their legendary inline-six engines, the 5 MGE and later the 7 MGE, and built them like they expected to compete with Mercedes diesels for longevity. These engines were so ridiculously overbuilt that they appear in everything from super sports cars to Land Cruisers. The 5-speed manual or 4-speed automatic transmissions were simple and reliable. The interior was basic but durable. Velour seats that lasted, buttons that worked, climate control that never failed. Here's what nobody appreciated. Toyota's warranty confidence was genuine because the engineering was battle-tested across their entire lineup. These cars featured rear-wheel drive, independent rear suspension, and build quality that rivaled German luxury. The inline-six featured timing chains instead of belts, simple fuel injection, and cooling systems designed for abuse. In developing countries, Cressidas are still working as taxis with over 500,000 miles, still hauling passengers in conditions where modern cars overheat and surrender. Today, clean Cressidas sell for $5,000 to $12,000 with high mileage because educated buyers recognize Japanese inline-six durability at reasonable prices. But does Toyota's luxury engineering compare to what France built for African immortality? Number 9. Peugeot 504, 1968 to 1983. The Peugeot 504 wasn't built for European highways. It was engineered for places where roads are suggestions and mechanics are rumors. While everyone talks about Japanese and German reliability, there's a French sedan that conquered Africa and kept running in conditions that would destroy Land Cruisers. The 504 became legendary across Africa, the Middle East, and South America for one simple reason. It absolutely refused to die. In countries where a broken vehicle means being stranded 300 miles from help, the 504 earned a reputation that transcended brand loyalty. The diesel engines, particularly the XD2 and XD3, were agricultural-grade machinery that happened to fit in a car. These motors were so understressed that they'd run on contaminated fuel and survive overheating that would grenade modern engines. The suspension design was genius. Independent front, solid rear axle with coil springs that could absorb potholes the size of meteor craters. A chassis so robust that African taxi operators would run them to 500,000 plus miles on roads that barely existed. Here's what made the 504 special. Parts were simple and interchangeable. A farmer in rural Senegal could keep one running with basic tools. In many African nations, the 504 is still the taxi of choice, 40 plus years after production ended. Think about that while your 2026 sedan needs a software update to start. Today, finding a 504 diesel is like striking gold, except this treasure can still cross the Sahara after sitting for a year. But does French colonial toughness compare to what Honda built in their legendary Accord? Number 8. Honda Accord, 1986 to 1989. The Honda Accord from the late 1980s was the automotive equivalent of that overachieving student who ruins the curve for everyone else. While American manufacturers were cutting corners faster than NASCAR drivers, Honda engineers were having meetings about meetings to discuss optimal thread pitch for seat adjustment screws. The third generation Accord emerged when Honda's philosophy was brutally simple. Build it right the first time because warranty claims are dishonorable. These engineers would lose sleep over a squeaky dashboard, resulting in a mid-sized sedan that could survive anything short of a meteor strike. The engines were masterpieces of mechanical simplicity. No complicated computer systems, no 17 different sensors waiting to fail, just pure mechanical efficiency. Owners routinely reported hitting 300,000 miles with nothing more than oil changes and the occasional timing belt. The attention to detail was borderline obsessive. Door hinges over-engineered to the point of absurdity. Cup holders tested for 100,000 insertion cycles. Consumer Reports gives these 5 out of 5 reliability ratings. The only people who didn't love them were mechanics, because Accord owners rarely needed their services. In developing nations where cars are driven until they disintegrate, these Accords are everywhere. When something finally breaks after 400,000 miles, the parts are so simple you can fix it with basic tools. Today, clean third-gen Accords sell for $4,000 to $8,000 because buyers understand Honda engineering was actually superior, except this treasure can still deliver 35 miles per gallon after sitting in storage. But does Honda's obsessive perfection compare to what Toyota built as the world's most reliable sedan? Number 7. Toyota Corolla, 1988 to 1992. The Toyota Corolla from this era wasn't trying to impress anyone. It was Toyota's sedan at peak honest engineering before complexity took over and before manufacturers discovered planned obsolescence. The 1.6-liter 4 AFE engine featured simple port fuel injection, meaning it avoided all the complexity plaguing modern engines. This was basically agricultural equipment disguised as automotive technology, crossing 400,000 plus miles like it was nothing. These engines were so under stress that highway cruising felt like asking a sumo wrestler to lift a coffee cup. The 5-speed manual or 3-speed automatic transmissions were Toyota's proven units. Simple, rebuildable, understood by every mechanic worldwide. The simplicity meant any mechanic could work on them without laptop computers, just wrenches and determination. These Corollas had real keys, manual HVAC, engage clusters you could read. Consumer Reports gives these 5 out of 5 reliability ratings. The only people who didn't love them were mechanics, because Corolla owners rarely needed their services. In every developing country, there are Corollas from this era still working as taxis, some with over 600,000 miles, and they've never had major engine work. Today, Corollas with 300,000 plus miles sell for $3,000 to $7,000 because buyers worldwide recognize what was built. They're the automotive equivalent of sledgehammers. Not pretty, not sophisticated, but absolutely perfect. But does Toyota's worldwide reliability compare to what they built for the American market? Number 6. Toyota Camry, 1992 to 1996. The Toyota Camry from the mid-1990s was the automotive equivalent of that dependable workhorse who never quits, never complains, and somehow always gets the job done. While other manufacturers were chasing fancy features, Toyota quietly built a mid-size sedan that could outlast several presidential administrations. The 2.2-liter 5 SFE four-cylinder, or 3.0-liter, 3V ZF EV, 6 engines were masterpieces of understated engineering, so simple and reliable that Toyota engineers probably felt embarrassed by how easy their job was. These motors were basically agricultural equipment designed to run forever. The 5-speed manual or 4-speed automatic transmissions were bulletproof. The body was steel construction. The interior was basic. Cloth seats lasting decades, buttons that worked. Young families bought these, beat them mercilessly like rented mules, and they refused to die. Consumer Reports gives these 5 out of 5 reliability ratings. The only people who didn't love them were mechanics, because Camry owners rarely needed their services. Taxi companies and delivery services bought thousands. An industry that goes through vehicles like tissues chose the Camry because they needed something that wouldn't die. 25 years later, many are still running with 400,000 plus miles. Today, Camrys with 250,000 plus miles sell for $4,000 to $8,000 because buyers understand Toyota's simplicity was actually superior, except this treasure can still deliver 30 miles per gallon after sitting for a year. But does Toyota's American success compare to what Buick built for the senior market? Number 5, Buick LeSabre, 1992 to 1999. The Buick LeSabre from the 1990s was the automotive equivalent of that reliable friend who shows up on time, never complains, and somehow always has gas money. While other manufacturers were chasing performance numbers, Buick quietly built a sedan that could outlast several presidential administrations. The 3.8-liter V6 engine was a masterpiece of understated engineering. So smooth and reliable that Buick engineers probably felt embarrassed by how easy their job was. This motor was basically agricultural equipment designed to run forever on nothing but regular unleaded. But here's where it gets interesting. These cars developed a cult following among taxi drivers and traveling salesmen. A LeSabre could hit 400,000 miles while still having enough life left to teach younger cars about persistence. The seats were designed for people who understood American highways, were measured in thousands of miles. The 4-speed automatic was GM's proven 4 T6O-E. Consumer Reports consistently rated the LeSabre as one of the most reliable vehicles ever tested. The only people who didn't love them were mechanics, because LeSabre owners rarely needed their services. These cars became the unofficial vehicles of America's senior citizens, not because they were slow, but because they recognized genuine quality. Today, LeSabres with 300,000 plus miles sell for $3,000 to $6,000 because buyers recognize what's gone. American V6 reliability before complexity took over, except this treasure still rides like a cloud. But does Buick's smooth reliability compare to what Volvo built as their indestructible tank? Number 4, Volvo 74 OC 940, 1982 to 1998. The Volvo 740 and 940 weren't just cars. They were Swedish engineering statements written in steel and stubbornness. When Volvo engineers built these beasts, they apparently forgot they were supposed to make profits and just focused on making something that wouldn't die. The B230 engine, a 2.3-liter inline-4, was basically agricultural equipment disguised as automotive technology. This motor regularly crossed 400,000 to 500,000 miles while laughing at maintenance schedules. These engines were so overbuilt that Volvo engineers tested them by running them without oil until they seized, then redesigned them to last even longer. Just mechanical fuel injection that a farmer could understand. The body construction was absolutely bonkers. Panel gaps tighter than bank vaults. Steel thick enough to stop small projectiles. The rear-wheel drive layout was simple, durable, and rebuildable forever. The interior was basic but built to last decades. Cloth seats that aged gracefully, manual HVAC that worked with gloves. Consumer Reports gives these 4 to 5 out of 5 reliability ratings. The only people who didn't love them were mechanics because Volvo 740/940 Owners rarely needed their services. In Scandinavia, these cars are still daily drivers at 500,000 plus miles. Still commuting, still hauling families, still refusing to acknowledge they should have died 300,000 miles ago. Today, clean 740/940s sell for $4,000 to $10,000 because buyers understand Swedish tank engineering was actually superior, except this treasure can still cruise at 70 miles per hour. But does Volvo's tank construction compare to what Lexus built as Japanese luxury perfection? Number 3, Lexus LS400, 1990 to 2000. The Lexus LS400 wasn't just a luxury sedan, it was Toyota's declaration of war on German engineering, and the machine that proved Japanese manufacturers could build luxury cars that actually lasted forever. Toyota took their legendary 1UZ-FEV8, making 250 to 290 horsepower, and built it like they expected to compete with Mercedes diesels for longevity. This engine was so ridiculously overbuilt that mechanics joke you need industrial equipment to stress it. Just naturally aspirated V8 perfection, running to 500,000 plus miles routinely. The 4-speed automatic transmission was butter smooth and bulletproof. The body featured panel gaps measured in millimeters, tighter than German sedans. Here's what shocked the automotive world. Consumer Reports gave the LS400 5 out of 5 reliability ratings year after year. Perfect scores that German luxury could never match. The build quality was so obsessive that door hinges were over-engineered to absurdity. The interior featured leather that aged beautifully, wood trim that was actually real wood, and climate control that maintained perfect temperature. The only people who didn't love them were mechanics, because LS400 owners rarely needed their services. In developing nations, well-maintained LS400s are still running as luxury taxis with over 600,000 miles, still purring along like mechanical aristocrats who refuse to acknowledge they should have died 400,000 miles ago. Today, LS400s with 300,000 plus miles sell for $5,000 to $12,000 because buyers recognize Japanese luxury engineering was actually superior, except this treasure still rides like a cloud. But does Lexus luxury engineering compare to what Volvo built as their ultimate statement? Number 2, Volvo 240, 1974 to 1993. The Volvo 240 wasn't just built to last. It was engineered to outlive your children, your grandchildren, and possibly several minor civilizations. In 1974, Volvo engineers apparently attended a meeting where someone said, "Let's build a car safer than a bomb shelter and more reliable than gravity." The 240's design philosophy was beautifully simple. Make everything 3 times stronger than necessary, then add more metal just for safety. The result was a car that looked like a refrigerator, but had the structural integrity of a bank vault. The B21 and B23 engines were so overbuilt that Volvo tested them by running them without oil until they seized, then redesigned them to last even longer. These motors regularly hit 400,000 miles. Some passed 500,000 miles. There are documented cases with over 1 million miles. The genius was in the simplicity. While others added computers, Volvo stuck with what worked: mechanical fuel injection that a farmer could understand, manual transmissions that shifted like rifle bolts. Consumer Reports gives these 5 out of 5 reliability ratings. The only people who didn't love them were mechanics, because Volvo 240 owners rarely needed their services. Volvo 240s became the unofficial car of anti-car enthusiasts, people who just want something that will start every morning until the sun explodes. Scientists studying longevity should probably start with Volvo 240s. Whatever they did to make these immortal needs to be studied. Today, clean 240es sell for $5,000 to $15,000. Finding one is like striking gold, except gold is softer and less valuable. But does even the legendary Volvo 240 compare to number 1? Number 1, Mercedes-Benz W123, 1976 to 1985. At the top sits the Mercedes-Benz W123, and honestly, nothing else even comes close. This wasn't just built to last. It was constructed like Mercedes expected it to survive the collapse of civilization itself. In the late 1970s, Mercedes-Benz committed what can only be described as automotive blasphemy. They over-engineered a car to such an absurd degree that accountants are probably still having nightmares. These cars were so ridiculously overbuilt that Mercedes engineers reportedly used twice the necessary steel in critical areas. The doors weighed as much as modern car hoods, and the body panels were thick enough to deflect small projectiles. In Morocco, these mechanical immortals are still running taxi routes with over 600,000 miles on original engines. One documented case shows 1.2 million miles, equivalent to driving to the moon and back twice. The secret was simple. Mercedes threw money at quality like it was going out of style. Every component was tested to destruction, then redesigned to be even stronger. The legendary OM617 diesel engine was so under stress that highway speeds felt like a leisurely warm-up. Here's the beautiful irony. Mercedes lost money on every W123 they sold. The bean counters were tearing their hair out because the engineering costs were economically insane. It was like they forgot they were a business and decided to become a charity for people who needed immortal automobiles. Consumer Reports gives these 5 out of 5 reliability ratings. The only people who didn't love them were mechanics, because W123 owners rarely needed their services. After the nuclear apocalypse, there will be cockroaches, Keith Richards, and W123 Mercedes still puttering along. Many owners report these cars actually get more reliable with age. Today, clean W123s sell for $10,000 to $30,000. Finding one is like discovering buried treasure, except this treasure can still cruise at 70 miles per hour after 40 years. That's your countdown of 12 sedans that were built to last forever. Which one shocked you the most? Drop your guess in the comments below. I bet half of you didn't expect that Mercedes W123 to have 1.2 million miles. These weren't just cars. They were the last machines built before planned obsolescence, before computers took over, before manufacturers realized immortality was bad for business. They proved that sometimes simpler really was stronger. Hit subscribe for more automotive legends, and remember, they really don't make them like they used to.